Welcome back. You are listening to the Maria Makonda Show on Salam Media, and we are also live on Facebook. If you have any comments, queries, questions, or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment section below, or you can send them to our WhatsApp number on 061 So, recently, an 8-month-old baby, Omar Yahi, passed away after being repeatedly refused an Israeli travel permit from Gaza for an urgent life-saving cardiac surgery. According to the Fourth Geneva Convention, Israel is to allow freedom of access to medical care, but obviously this is not the case. Joining me on the line right now is Amina Kaskar, who is the co-founder of the Shamsan Palestine's Children's Initiative, to talk more about what the organization does, etc. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Amina, and shukran for joining me.
Jazakallah for having me. Wa alaikum assalam.
All right, so tell us about the initiative and the campaign that the Shamsan Palestine's Children. And in fact, tell us more about the organization. What is it all about?
The organization is basically an NGO that is a platform for supporting young children in Palestine, but also trying to support the relationships and connections between youth in South Africa and youth in Palestine as well. And a lot of our projects work with the Palestinian children, and sort of, as you mentioned in your introduction, is a response and a reaction to sort of the brutalities and violence that are going on in Palestine. I think Nadia Mir, who's also a co-founder of Shamsan and the founder of Shamsan, is also on the line and will probably give you more of a comprehensive understanding of Shamsan.
Right. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Nadia. Tell us more about Shamsan.
Salam. Yes, I'd like to speak a little bit about the kind of work we're doing and our focus, which is predominantly around the human rights and children's rights in particular of Palestinians that are living in occupied territories within Palestine, specifically in Jerusalem, in the West Bank and Gaza is where we have been running programs. Right now, as you mentioned, it is particularly difficult because in light of the situation leading up to the annexure, the proposed annexure, arrangements between the Palestinian Authority and the Israelis have ended. And so with that, it's impacted the lives hugely of Palestinians living there. After more than 25 years of the Oslo Accord and cooperation agreements, suspending these has huge impacts, both politically and economic implications for Palestinians. And some of these include the more than 90,000 Palestinians that have to cross through checkpoints throughout the West Bank to get to Israel to work. And now these families have no income. Like you said and mentioned with the story of the baby Omar, he requires a permit to leave Gaza for medical treatment in the West Bank. And he was not able to achieve that because there's no longer this coordination and agreement between the two sides. Israel has citizens of Gaza under complete siege and blockade. So this is a huge concern for people that are working to assist Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. Now, or rather, how does the organization help deal help the kids deal with mental health, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, etc.?
Well, there are a lot of initiatives that we are busy with and will speak to, but on a practical level, since we are here in thousands of miles away from them, what we can do is offer solidarity and, of course, some physical assistance through projects and programs that we run. So we'd like to speak to you a little bit about more of the programs that we have done in the past and what we continue to do with specific communities.
All right, please go ahead and tell us.
Okay. Are you able to see our PowerPoint?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm having a connection issue. I'm not accessing. Okay, can you see this? Well, the images that you're seeing right now is the destruction of education facilities in Gaza, and we'll speak more about the programs that we have to help students access education, higher education in particular, at universities in the West Bank, Jerusalem, and Gaza. We have an Adopt a Student program where you can learn more about specific students and assist them in their academic journey. Other images that you're looking at are these very violent attacks against young children that get arrested during night raids or kidnapped even, and I'm using the word kidnapped because they get snatched without anyone knowing. Parents are not informed, the children get removed and they get subjected to intensive interrogations that go on for days, and they're also subjected to what is called investigations, where they have to remain in prison for long periods. This is particularly troubling right now under COVID lockdowns, where children have been denied even visitation rights to families, and this has been going on for more than 4 months. Court procedures haven't happened as they should, and so children are just lying in prisons, subjected to horrible conditions, and of course at much higher risk right now of contracting COVID and worse.
All right. I'd like to find out what are the long-term and short-term impacts that the conflict has on the children of Palestine? Sister Amina? All right, I'll try and ask the question again. I'm not sure if you heard it, Sister Amina. What are the long-term and short-term effects that the conflict has on the children of Palestine?
Sorry about that. I think I got disconnected. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think, as you can see, we have a photo up of Ahmed Nawabji, and I think he, very early on in his life, when he was just 4 years old, his family was killed due to an arson attack that was on his home, and he received third-degree burns all over his body. And I think these sort of traumas that children go through at such a young age will definitely gets carried through to the later stages of development. But I think what Shamsan does and what sort of highlights with these children is the strength and resilience that they sort of bring through into their teenage years. And the ambassador for Shamsan is Jannah Jihad. And I think she exemplifies this as a child that's the youngest journalist in the world. She sort of gives a voice for Palestinian children, and I think a lot of the children have this strength and this resilience and this fight within them that they take on because of the traumas and hardships that they received quite early on in their childhood. I think, Nadia, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I think that basically sums it up. I mean, there's ongoing trauma. It's not something that we could deal with. In the case of many children in other parts of the world, trauma that they experience may be an issue that they were dealing with in an incident that happened in the past, and they're dealing now with the present and trying to recover from it. But in the case of Palestinian children, you have a situation where it's past, it is in the present, and they are in imminent danger all the time. They don't know when they go to bed at night whether they will remain that way or whether there would be a night raid and either members of their family or themselves get detained and what they might be subjected to. You also have a situation right now across the West Bank, particularly in what is declared Area C zones that are completely under the control of Israel, where there's a 250% increase in demolitions. And it's not like they're always served with a demolition order and people can prepare and remove their belongings. This can happen in the middle of the night where people are subjected to soldiers storming into their homes, and at a moment's notice, they have to run out for their lives and lose their belongings that were in there as their house tumbles around them. There are hundreds of families now that are being displaced and having their homes demolished. So this is an extremely difficult situation for everyone, adults especially, but children even more, because it's difficult when parents are going through all of this to deal with children. So we try to do through creative work and projects that children can focus on in a more positive way, getting them to access platforms where they can tell their stories and share their realities, and getting this through on an international platform, which is wonderful through social media today. More people internationally can connect to them, and we hope would support them in the work that they're trying to achieve.
All right. So, what are some of the most notable cases that you've worked on?
There are so many. I think Amina might have her favorites, but one of the stories that I can tell you, I'm not sure if we do have a picture of him, but South Africans may have heard of, is Mohammed Tamimi. He's the young cousin of Ahad Tamimi, who was shot in the head. And we brought him to South Africa because after miraculously surviving a bullet wound and to the brain and losing a third of his skull, we assisted with surgery, reconstructive surgery by a South African medical team. And I played mom to him for the weeks that he was here recovering from that. Of course, our relationship with Jannah Jihad, our ambassador, is wonderful, and we continue to run many programs and campaigns with her. We offer mentorship, and some of the pictures you had seen just now were of tours, speaking tours that have been undertaken to South Africa. She's worked with a number of other organizations. You may have seen her there with the Pope, and she presented the Hiroshima peace flame to the Pope and called on his support to see what he could do to ease the tensions and play a more supportive role. There's ongoing programs, and I think Amina can perhaps mention a child that comes to mind for her.
I think definitely, as you said, Nadia, I think the Tamimi family is one that sticks out just because we did bring them to South Africa, and I think um, maybe just a couple of years after Ahad was in South Africa, she was arrested in Palestine, and I think that story became so global and was such an important um, conversation that was held when she was arrested, because I think the whole world was fighting for her to be released. So I think just in terms of how one child can have such a huge impact, I think that's definitely, I think Ahad as well would also definitely be included. I think would be one of my favorites as well. But I mean, it's definitely hard to choose. One of our early projects with Shamsan was a children's calendar where we highlighted the stories of 12 children. And I think each one of them, they're so unique and so special, and their stories are just something that, I mean, it's nothing like we've heard before. And I think it's hard to single out a particular one, but definitely all the children that were mentioned in that calendar for me, yeah, very special stories and very moving stories as well.
I
Yeah.
remember Jannah when she came to South Africa, such a brave young woman there. So now tell us about the campaigns that are currently running and how can people get involved?
I think Nadia mentioned uh, our sponsor a student project, which we running. I think it's been going on for the past couple of years, but it's running at the moment. And this project is basically, uh, yeah, the idea is that South Africans sponsor or adopt a child and pay for their tertiary education. These youth are either wanting to study medicine, engineering, journalism, arts, and they have a really strong urge to give back to their community. So on our website, we have these short little bios of all the students that have been previously sponsored by the Shamsan community. And I think currently the number stands at over 100 students have been sponsored from people, I think, in South Africa alone. Um, and I think it's really great because what happens with a project like this is that Nadia has been collecting video biographies of these students, and people can really follow and track their academic path and how well they're doing in university. So you sponsor a child, but you can really invest and interact um, uh, with them both through their studies and even after their studies, and how they giving back to their community. So I think, yeah, in terms of one of our projects, we really urge people to visit our website to donate to sponsor a student. Um, yeah, and I think it's a really nice initiative and something that can easily be done by many South Africans, we would hope. Um, yeah, and another project that we are working on at the moment is the Somewood campaign. And the Somewood campaign is basically we're trying to raise awareness for a community in the South Hebron Hills. And the youth of Somewood are doing all these are really amazing projects to try and better their community and try to stand up against the Israeli settlers who are constantly threatening to remove them. So just to give you some background of the youth of Somewood, they are a group of Palestinian students in the South Hebron Hills, and they are really committed to a peaceful, popular way of resistance, and they are working on all these projects as a way to stand against these demolitions that are taking place by Israeli settlers in their communities, which you can see in the pictures that I've put up. Just to give you some idea, this is a video clip that Sammy, who is one of the members of the youth of Somewood, he sent us. And basically what he's filming here is the village of Atawini. And this is one of the only villages in the whole of the South Hebron Hills that have access to resources, electricity, water. It's one of the only villages with a school and a clinic. And all this empty land is basically where Palestinian houses used to be before they were demolished by the Israeli settlement. And as you can see, the Israeli settlers have planted trees and planted trees and bushes, and also have erected their own settlements on the periphery of these Palestinian settlements. It's also interesting to note that these are areas where a lot of Bedouins live. So where you see this big tree is a cave where the Bedouins would stay. Let me just try and move towards images of this sort of lifestyle. So people living in this region, they suffer not only from poverty and lack of resources, but they also, I mean, they have huge violations of their most basic human rights. The Bedouins living here are constantly at risk of their houses being demolished, leaving them homeless. So we've sort of been working with the youth of Somewood on this project of rehabilitating the caves. Here you can see the youth of Somewood already cleaning up one of the caves, which they have converted into their community center. These are some of the members of the youth of Somewood. And then another very important project is the Somewood Stone House. And this is basically an ancient stone home, used to belong to one of the families in the village, and the youth of Somewood are basically rebuilding it and converting it into a youth center. These are just also more video clips of the area. And here we can see some of the youth rebuilding some of the community that was demolished in the past decades. This was actually an original, one of the original owners of this house, and it's one of the grandmothers of one of the youth of Somewood. And she was basically giving a short tour explaining how they were evicted from their house and how this house was demolished. So I think even just her narrative shows how important these projects are in trying to rebuild what was taken away from them. And yeah, I mean, just a lot of images just trying to give you an idea of how all the children are really coming together to rebuild their communities and occupy the space that's theirs. So from the littlest of kids to the university students that are all working together to rebuild their community.
SubhanAllah. Wow, when kids only want to play and go to school and learn and be kids, be children, but unfortunately, the kids of Palestine, Gaza, Syria, and all other war-torn countries cannot do that and cannot have that opportunity. But with education and with the Shamsan, it is possible for them to learn and to become something, to make something out of their lives. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, so we're gonna leave the conversations there for today. Jazakallah to both of you for joining me.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and your support.
Jazakallah for having us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Amina Kaskar and Nadia Mir, the co-founder and founder of Shamsan, Palestine's Children's Initiative. So you've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos, their contact details are also on the screen, and how you can get involved should you be interested in helping the children of Gaza and Palestine. Do stay with us, we will be right back.